the Starfighter Podcast.
All right, welcome back. We got a special show for you guys today. We're talking about WandaVision episode 6. As always, your two co-hosts, Dom and Jake. We're here today with our special guest, Austin. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
All right, excited to talk WandaVision with you guys. Before we get into our spoiler breakdown, please, we ask that if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, and leave us a comment. Join the conversation. Let us know if we missed anything in our review. All right, let's get down to it. I wanted to start with like some quick reactions about this episode. I know for myself personally, I really enjoyed it. I don't think that it was the best episode so far. Wasn't my favorite, but I did really enjoy it. And of course, we'll get into it more. But there is a definite Malcolm in the Middle vibe throughout the show, and breaking that fourth wall with our characters, how they're talking to the audience. I thought that was pretty great. Obviously, I think all of us being 90s kids, we could really relate to something like that. But let's start with Austin. What do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I actually really liked this episode. I think 2 weeks ago, with the All in the Reality episode, was by far the weakest. The next week after that jumped up a bit. I was almost expecting this episode to be extra crazy because episode 6 and the all hexagonal theme. But yeah, no, a lot going on, and kind of at least eliminated some possibilities for explanations and opened up others. So it's really cool. We can get more into that later, though.
Yeah, before we hear from Jake, kind of like what you were saying, I expected a little bit more too. I'm curious to know what you guys think, but I feel like sometimes they're kind of like pulling their punches a little bit, like not even necessarily like when it comes to, like fight scenes or whatever, just like just feel like that it could be a little bit more like stronger with the action, or like we've gotten some of these like really intense moments, and I just feel like there's been like some missed opportunities for more of that sometimes. But overall, I'm enjoying it, and we'll hear from Jake.
Yeah, I agree. Very good episode. I did feel like last week's definitely had those more intense moments. This time it was more of just like Wanda enjoying her time with her brother and then letting Vision just do whatever the heck he wants. So there wasn't the whole confrontation between the two of them, except for in the very beginning of the episode. So I feel like next time they meet, it might be pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Austin?
Oh, no, I
cut you
actually
off.
thought, no, this episode was pretty cool. But yeah, what you were saying with pulling the punches, I feel like because of COVID and things getting delayed, this show would have fit in a lot better had it come right after the action-packed Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then this would have kind of slowed things down a little bit, tied into Loki, the next Doctor Strange movie, and been kind of a more change of pace. Whereas this is the first Marvel thing we've had in so long. It is a little slow at times and a little draggy. So yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there.
Right, good point. Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get into it. We've got the opening theme song. Did you guys want to touch on this at all?
I mean, yeah, as I like talked about, just totally Malcolm in the Middle, like to the closest thing, like with the fonts and then the scenes,
Yeah.
with like her brushing her teeth and everything like that. Like those are taken straight from the intro theme song. It didn't quite sound like it's that much, but the lyrics were a little bit interesting about like there was something to do with, oh, it's all fake, but just like go with it or whatever. So it was pretty interesting lyrics there.
Yeah, there's something about like you don't always know who's coming to play, something to that effect. Really, giving us this impression about, there's still more characters that we haven't seen yet. Possibly, another big bad soon to come.
Yeah, it was also interesting. Yeah, the kids taking more of like a central role, like this is their world too now, in addition to one. Yeah, along with the theme song and their role in this episode, kind of interesting.
Right. Well, they're starting to get ready for Halloween. We see that this tension's building between Wanda and Vision, still from last week's episode, which I did want to say one more time again. I mentioned it before, but that whole argument, between Wanda
That was
and
awesome.
Vision, I felt like that was the best acting that I've seen with the two of them. I thought it was really great. But yeah, we can see that that's still carried on to this week's episode. The trust definitely isn't there like it should be in a marriage. And yeah, so everyone's kind of getting ready for Halloween. We get some awesome appearances from the old school costumes, which I really loved. But yeah, Jake, take us through this, intro scene and your thoughts.
Yeah, costumes are great. It was interesting. He was like, "Oh, that was the only thing in my closet." So
Right.
she's still like controlling his every move. But yeah, this episode is a little bit different on their relationship. It's either like Vision's getting more self-aware or more powerful, or maybe that Wanda is kind of allowing him to act on his own. She didn't like reset like she did in previous episodes when he went off course to let him do his own thing. So I don't know if she isn't capable of doing that anymore since he's becoming more aware, or like I've talked about in previous episodes, that she kind of has this personality thing where it's almost opposites, where it's one controlling everything and then her also just wanting to live this happy life with Vision. But definitely we've seen that the more you kind of push, the more freedom you get, and that was kind of cool to see from Vision in this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Austin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm wondering if her ability, we saw something, was it the previous episode where Vision says, "You can't control me the way you control them." And she's
Right.
like, "Can't I?" It was super creepy. And like, along with the last episode, their relationship kind of going crazy, but might be because Vision is not human. That ties in with something else for later, though. I'll move on from there.
What do you guys think about the Quicksilver costume? I thought it was really awesome. Definitely one of my favorite, X-Men superheroes. But you guys get a kick out of that too.
Yeah, it's cool to see that he was completely in this episode. Like I said last week, I think that I hope he sticks around for the rest of the show. And it's interesting to see that we didn't see him at all in any of the trailers or anything like that, especially because the trailers focused on this Halloween episode a lot. So it was good job of them for hiding it, and it's been awesome to have them.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see that Evan Peters and Elizabeth Olsen, they have really good chemistry, and with that brother sister relationship, and we'll see that a little bit more later. But now we cut over to director Hayward, and we get the sense that he's trying to eliminate Wanda, and he has this confrontation with Monica, and going back and forth about what's the right way to handle the situation. And I did like the line where Monica says, if Wanda's the problem, then she's also the solution. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. Austin, do you think that we're starting to see, Hayward, from his approach of everything, you think we're starting to see him turn into a villain possibly? What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this episode kind of revealed a lot about Hayward. I've kind of gotten the feeling about it, and it's pretty much been confirmed, or at least there's a large aspect of it, is he has a lot of interest in Vision, maybe even more than he does in Wanda. He just wants to eliminate Wanda, get her out of the picture, whatever. We saw on his computer, as Dark was going through it, cataract in your eye, Vision. So it seems like he has some sort of plan to weaponize Vision. We saw it was classified weapons intel, that file that she was looking at. So whether he just wants to use Vision as a weapon to counteract other threats, maybe it ties into the whole secret invasion. We don't know if that'll actually be Skrulls or it could be Kree or what's going on there. But yeah, whether he's a villain or just a regular government agent pushing things too far, I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, he definitely is really focused on Vision and what he can do with him.
Yeah, Jake, I mean, I'm of the impression that, from what I know, that S.W.O.R.D is supposed to be good, but they can always put a spin on things, right? I have heard some speculation when it comes to Hayward that maybe he's covering up um, some stuff as far as possibly he was behind what happened with Wanda, and now he's trying to cover that up and trying to take matters into his own hands so that people don't see that he may have been a cause of this aftermath that we're seeing from Wanda. Did you have any thoughts?
I kind of agree with that. I don't know to what extent, because like Austin was saying, yeah, it definitely seems like he was the one in charge of trying to weaponize Vision, which did set Wanda off in a way. So he at least was part of it in that aspect. But it seems like he was definitely like traumatized by the snap. He really got into it, and how Monica didn't understand what they're dealing with, whereas she's trying to save him and he's just trying to destroy any threats, which is kind of Shield's purpose. Of course, the sentient weapons with the SW standing for it, which apparently he was trying to use one sentient weapon against others. So maybe he still thinks that Vision has the power to stop Wanda, which I don't know about that, because it doesn't seem like anybody can at this point. So I kind of wonder what his plan is moving forward, because I mean, Vision could reason with her, but no one could really stop her power.
Yeah, you know what? Going along with that, you make a good point, and something I wanted to also throw at you is it appears to be that Wanda can't really control the people, her family, who have ties to the stone and who have gotten their powers also, from the stone. What do you guys think about that? As far as like her not really having a complete control on Vision that we've seen, even with Quicksilver, and even with her kids. Do you have any thoughts, Austin?
Yeah, so this less control seems to apply to several, even beyond her family. We've seen with Agnes, maybe she has slightly less control over Agnes. So this episode seemed like she at least has some. Yeah, and others like Monica also. Monica broke character several times as well. And from what we've seen in this episode, we've kind of seen some odd things in the past, like cutting through the wall with the hedge trimmers. In this episode, the clothes hanger. People just kind of skipping out. As Wanda diverts her attention to something else, seems like she has a limit as far as her power goes. When she went to expand the world as well, she just shut down everybody. Everybody's frozen. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. I forgot what the original question was.
Oh no, yeah, you made some good points to go along with that. Anything else, Jake, before we move on?
No, I think that covers it. I think, yeah, I'm still hesitant to say that Hayward's a villain. I think he's just taking things a step too far, trying to be too protective and just not doing things the right way. So it'd be interesting to see if he actually goes full villain on us.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And like I mentioned before, in the comics, supposedly that was a quality, that was a distinction between S.W.O.R.D and Shield, is that S.W.O.R.D was more aggressive in how they dealt with matters. But now we go off to see them trick or treating. Really interesting that this is the first time I think that we see other kids. So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that and how that could be possible here. And then we have this conversation with Wanda and Herb. Another really interesting thing, how he was getting this call from someone that was telling him everything that was happening, everything that Pietro was doing, just like a second before we saw it happening in the background. But yeah, and then he also tells Wanda, that Vision wasn't helping that day, with the neighborhood watch, and so that causes alarm for her as well. Jake, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, definitely. It seems like we have our next person who kind of understands what's going on here, like Agnes did in the last episodes, referring to Wanda as the director. Basically, Herb does the same thing, asking if she wants something changed, whether it be Vision off topic and everything like that. And yeah, it was interesting. He kind of knew it was going to happen before it was actually happening. Basically, like there was a script and he knew it was coming. But it was interesting to see he definitely has more anonymity than the rest of the town so far. We've seen like with Norm, he seems to have no idea what's going on. And Herb has been a little bit interesting too. It seems like he does have a relationship with Agnes. In that one episode, I believe it was episode 3, where he was cutting through the wall and everything. And then he was outside talking to Agnes about Monica, and they were both kind of fearful of her. And Agnes was the one to tell Herb not to tell Vision why they're all there, everything like that. So he definitely knows something. He's kind of at an Agnes point right now where he's just playing along. But yeah, it was interesting to see that he has some character to him, that he's not just fully under Wanda's control like everybody else.
That's a great point too. Do you think that Herb knows more now because of how time has progressed, or do you think it's the creators of the show now giving us more hints that Herb is behind everything too and understands the plan?
It's probably just a little more hints. Like, you think that Agnes has kind of been in control of herself this whole time, and then last episode was the one where she actually said something. It's kind of interesting too because it kind of plays along with Wanda not hiding the fact that she's in control. So I don't know if before people just didn't want to address it because she wouldn't understand it herself, but now she understands that she is the director of this world and people can talk freely to her and ask her about things without her kind of freaking out.
Right. Austin, did you have anything?
Yeah, I felt like maybe Herb isn't so special. Like maybe the point of him also having this ability like Agnes is just our hint that Agnes maybe isn't so special. Agnes is not in control. Maybe Wanda's just granting her a little bit more anonymity or a bigger role in the show or whatever you want to call it. We saw in this episode, definitely Agnes is being controlled as well. Vision did the thing where he fixes her mind and then he put it back. I don't think, I've seen some people say, well, she was faking it, but I think Vision could tell. He seems to rewire and put their brains back to however Wanda changed it. So he seems to have some awareness of how whatever is going on inside their mind. So yeah, maybe Agnes has just been like a big, huge red herring. That's what I've been kind of feeling like for a while. They want to throw us in there. She's the obvious Agatha Harkness, ties to
Right.
Mephisto. So yeah, I'm actually, well, I'll go on more Mephisto later, but I'm thinking that might all be a huge, big red herring, or at least maybe Easter egg wink at best.
Yeah, feel free to bring out more of those points too when we get to that scene as well, if you have anything more on that. So Vision goes off to explore. He's trying to find more answers, and he's getting further out on the edge of town of Westview. He's seeing these people who are under control, but also they're like hardly functioning. So Austin, what do you take away from this scene?
Yeah, and again, I guess we'll go into theories probably towards the end more. We see more and more of people's minds breaking. We see like the tears going down the eyes.
Right.
When Vision brings back, was it Norm, snaps him out of it temporarily. These people are being tormented. They're like terrified. So it seems for most of these people, they're locked in some sort of bad dream. And for some, that their bad dream interacts with how the town flows. We saw that discussion between Peter and Wanda about, we see Wanda kind of trying to keep families together, things like that. But they're in some sort of weird dream nightmare state, even though they appear happy and going about their lives. I don't know if these frozen ones she's holding in reserve for when she needs more actors. Also, Peter mentioned bringing back the kids for like a cameo appearance. It was very odd. Why has she been keeping the children separately? I think Wanda is tormenting these people in a terrible nightmare, and she's kept the kids separately because she doesn't want to put them through that, possibly like she was tormented as a kid by Hydra. So I don't know. We'll see a little bit more about that as we go. I guess there's several theories that could explain some of that.
Yeah, I agree. I know I think our last episode, Jake and I were talking a little bit about Wanda, and it does seem like she still is holding on to some moral values, and definitely, especially when it comes to her dealings with the kids, and like you were saying, maybe not controlling them as much, putting them uh, through as much as she is with the adults. Jake, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit more later when we talk about their conversation. But in
Okay.
this, it definitely seems like in the Truman Show, where all the extras basically on the outsides, they're kind of frozen and they just stand there waiting for like their orders on what to do next. And in the previous episode, she asked Vision, she's like, "Do you really think I'm controlling all these people, making their dentist appointments, blah blah blah?" Which she basically is saying that she's not capable at that point, which she kind of isn't. She's just kind of putting all these people on hold. So either her powers kind of have limits, or she's just holding them there in case she needs them later.
What do you guys think about this commercial? I think it was reminiscent of Yo Play. We'll throw it back to Jake. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is the hardest one to decipher.
Yeah, what are your
Initially,
theories on it?
yeah, yeah, you could say that Wanda is the child, sort of like an orphan, all alone. Like the kid is on the islands, and then somebody like a shark, like Mephisto, comes and gives her something. But it was kind of weird. Like she couldn't open like the yogurt, right? So it's almost like the shark was giving her something that wasn't real, that she couldn't actually have. So it was like the idea of it is great, but she is slowly basically dying. And then it did the time moving very quickly there, with the moon and the sun going out, like time's moving quickly in this reality. And then she's slowly starting to break apart herself. That's kind of what I got out of it.
Before I throw it to Austin, do you think the shark could also be um, Thanos or even Hydra, as far as we see like the kid, the yogurt is supposed to take place of her powers,
Mhm.
right? And we see that she doesn't get it in time. Her powers doesn't, it can't stop everything. It can't fix all of her problems. It can't save all of her friends. So that's kind of my thought process on the shark possibly resembling Thanos or even Hydra. But what do you think, Austin?
Yeah, like you were saying, yeah, it's called Yo Magic is the yogurt, so that
Yeah,
would be Wanda's power, and showing that it can't necessarily save somebody. It's not this cure all for everything. I've seen some people mention several relations between that commercial and possibly the Soul Stone, and how the trade takes place, trading one thing for the other, and the hunger. Yeah, I don't really know. It's one of the most vague ones we've seen so far. I've seen weird theories ranging from Red Skull to all over the place. So I think hopefully we'll get an answer by the end of this season, more what that whole thing was about.
something that has been through all the episodes and especially the commercials is that these commercials have to do with this grief or guilt or just traumatic traumatic experiences that Wanda has had. So I think that goes back to what Jake was saying about his interpretation a little bit about the commercial. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Definitely a little bit more vague than some of the other ones.
Yeah. Also, the first one without those actors. Every other one seems to be a reference to Wanda's past, things that have happened back. She feels bad about the theory that those actors could either represent or actually be her parents. But this one in the weird claymation style, it seems like maybe this is something that's currently ongoing. It's less clear that she's currently struggling with.
Right. Well, now Wanda and Pietro having this conversation. Oh, and before we get to that, I thought it was really cool and also kind of an Easter egg, right? The theater behind them, showing
Yeah.
both The Parent Trap and Incredibles. Both of those movies have ties to our show here now because obviously, they're trying to keep their parents together, and we see that struggle with Wanda and Vision, and then The Incredibles being a family of superheroes. But Jake, talk to me a little bit about this conversation that the two of them are having as far as you know Pietro's motives, what we think is going on here, and especially how he says that he's impressed by what Wanda's doing. Thought that was really interesting because she thought that maybe he would judge her on what she's doing and controlling everybody, but he said that he was impressed, and yeah, that was definitely interesting. But what do you take away from this?
Yeah, it's still so up in the air, really, who he is. As of like last episode, I was leaning more towards the theory that he was taken out of the multiverse from the old X-Men that we know and kind of replaced the Pietro in this world. But this time, I'm not really sure because first of all, he thinks he's the Pietro from Age of Ultron. He talks about getting shot down and everything like that, and then suddenly hearing her. He asks some weird questions though. He's like the kids where he doesn't kind of buy into the whole thing. He seems to know immediately that it was Wanda's doing and everything like that. He talks about it, how it's a step up from doing her little wiggly and putting nightmares in people's heads and everything. And then he asked the question, what happened to their accents, which I guess we're still wondering because it still doesn't make much sense, but whatever. But yeah, I think that was the interesting points, that he not only agrees with what Wanda's doing, that he said he was impressed. That kind of leads me to believe that this is more a figment of her imagination, somebody she brought in to make herself feel better. Because do we really think that Pietro would agree with this, the Pietro from Age of Ultron? I mean, he gave his life saving a kid and Hawkeye. And so now he's cool with it and impressed that Wanda's putting hundreds of kids to sleep permanently, and except for the occasional holiday episode, if we're assuming that he's accurate in what he thinks Wanda's doing. So that doesn't all add up to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't all add up, and there's still definite distinctions between Evan Peters and then can't remember the other actor, but our Pietro from Avengers: Age of Ultron. They're definitely different in their mannerisms, the way they talk. I think Evan Peters is more of a funny Pietro. Also, I thought the other one was a little bit more serious. And then when it came to the accent, I know last week you made a really good point, Jake, about how it could have been because we saw her use her accent, right? And it could have been that she was getting so upset and that kind of came out. And I thought that was really interesting point that you made because that does happen to people when people that have a strong accent like she does, and when they get frustrated, it tends to come out more and show more with their speaking. But Austin, did you have any more thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, for me, this kind of confirmed things that Peter from the X universe or Pietro from the MCU, this person is not either of them. Like Jake said, he was talking about how she made people have bad dreams and there's the little red squigglies. That's not any information Peter should have had. Only Pietro would have known that. Interestingly, also his comments as far as what were you guys talking about? Oh, about her, how he's impressed with her, and just the way he's talking doesn't fit with either version that we know from the MCU or the X-Men series. There is somebody who would have enough information from both of them to make this make sense, but I guess we'll keep going for now. But yeah, definitely, I don't think he's either Peter or Pietro.
So now we see Vision's going through the hex. He's making it outside into the field, and he's starting to come apart, which was a callback to, I believe, some comics. We see this happen to Vision, but yeah, he's coming apart, and the pieces are all flying back into the hex. Thought that was a really cool scene. Austin, I wanted to get your thoughts. Why don't you think S.W.O.R.D stepped in, and why didn't they help Vision? And maybe this goes back to what you're talking about earlier with Hayward and his motives when it comes to Vision.
I almost felt like at that moment Hayward didn't have a bigger plan or anything. That almost looked like a selfish moment, like ditch the troops, ditch Darcy handcuffed to the car. Like he was just out of there saving his own skin. So I think that goes along with his character not necessarily being a villain. He's selfish. He's pushes things a little too far sometimes, but I wouldn't say he's an outright villain. That's all I got from the scene. Maybe nothing bigger as to why he wasn't saving him. He's selfish and has his own agenda.
Right. Did you have any thoughts, Jake?
No, I kind of agree. Yeah, it's sort of like he still fears Wanda after what happened the last episode. And so it's like rushing in there to try to grab Vision. And I mean, what's he going to do? Right. So, yeah, I think that's a good point that Darcy's more selfless and wants to help him, and he's more selfish in that way.
Definitely. Well, now we're kind of getting to our conclusion of this episode. Wanda decides to step in because her son, and which one is Wiccan, by the way?
Billy.
Right?
Billy. Okay. Yeah. So Billy has this. I thought that was awesome. Tommy gets super speed, which we knew he was going to, and then Billy starts to see or hear, that how Vision's in trouble, and relates that to Wanda. Pietro makes, some kind of smug comment like, is your dead husband gonna die twice? And she throws him across the street. And so yeah, she steps in to help Vision, and we see that she's expanding the hex and really pushing it towards everybody, and it's pulling everyone in. It's pulling in these soldiers. They're turning into clowns. Inside this parade or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, any concluding thoughts on this, Jake, and any theories going forward with what we see here? Because we know Darcy got pulled in it. Hayward was cutting it really close. But yeah, any theories going forward into next week's episode with this conclusion that we get here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things right there with Pietro saying that it kind of made him sound like a huge jerk, which isn't really his character. So maybe we don't know who his character is in that way. But it was interesting that, again, they brought up how Monica's biology or whatever was changed when she went into the hex. So are we saying that that's going to happen to everybody else? It would kind of make sense then, like what's so special about her? And we know that she's going to get these abilities to be photon probably in this way. So is everybody going to get abilities from the hex being pushed out? Is this, I've seen somebody theorize that this is how basically the mutants start in this world, that everybody who happens to be inside the hex turns into mutants, kind of like she is basically, but not really in the MCU, but everybody who touches her power kind of becomes like her in the way that they're mutants. So that'll be interesting to see, and see more of Monica too.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought out Monica and what's going on with her. And yeah, I hadn't heard that before, but as I was hearing you say that, like my first initial thoughts were that it could be Monica or just a few different people if they had the X gene, right?
Sure.
And yeah,
sure. You're like,
they introduced that with the hex.
Yeah, maybe at the end of this show, she expands it to the entire world, and then some people like Monica or like you were saying, with people at X gene, whatever way they want to explain it in the MCU, that certain people will get these powers, and that's kind of how the mutants start. It's possible.
Or the hex gene. Maybe they'll call it that.
Nice.
Got to get the soundbite rim shot.
So we're just gonna call them the Hexmen from now on.
Yeah. Austin, anything you want to chime in
what
with
you
here?
guys were saying was funny. No, they could have used this in a way like you were saying to start out the X-Men. It kind of could be a mix between, since Inhumans totally failed, like a mix between X-Men origin story / Terrigenesis. Just kind of throw it all together and mutants pop out. The thing I find most interesting is the identity of both Pietro and actually Wanda herself. Looking at this episode, Pietro was very interesting. But first of all, why is he recast? Very odd. And then his behavior in this episode. So looking to who would have information about both of these characters, they would know about the alternate Peter Pietro from the X-Men universe. He's playing pranks on Halloween, super snarky, and doesn't really care what he says or who he offends. Which character fits this role perfectly? The theory I actually really liked that somebody brought out was that Loki is behind this. It fits in several different ways. Also, with Paul Bettany saying there's an actor he's wanting to work with, a secret actor that has not been leaked yet. It's not. This could also tie in with Immortus, Kang the Conqueror, Loki, whatever you call those time guys. He could also, if anybody was to be able to find another Mind Stone to bring Vision back, that would be Loki bouncing through the multiverse. Also, Loki was the show that was originally supposed to come right after WandaVision. So it would be interesting. He could have met the alternate Peter in another universe. He would have had enough knowledge of this one. I don't know. That I actually thought that theory could have been really cool. And then as far as who Wanda is, we almost seem to be moving away from her being Scarlet Witch. They've kind of bounced around it jokingly. Up until this point, they haven't been able to use that name because of X-Men rights. But it's almost seeming likely to me that she will kind of incorporate another character. I don't think we're going to see a big bad villain introduced right at the end of this series. That would just be very anticlimactic to me, like all of this build up to throw in a random character. I definitely don't see it being Mephisto. First of all, for casual viewers, that would be very odd and confusing. Secondly, for one of the biggest markets for Marvel in China, Mephisto would not fly. So if we're going to see
I saw that too, yeah.
a version of Mephisto, I think it'll be greatly changed. I think actually it could be Scarlet Witch herself, in which case I actually think they would go more along the route of her being Nightmare. We've seen supposed links about that way back about Nightmare being the villain for the second Doctor Strange movie. And I actually think that could be Wanda herself. She's obviously putting people through these terrible torments in their minds, aka a nightmare. Also, as far as Nightmare's powers, Nightmare gets more powerful the more nightmares people have, the more fear they have. So that could be why these people, why would Wanda be tormenting these people for no reason with her powers? That doesn't seem like Wanda, unless that's how her power is growing and expanding, because she's putting everybody in the town under these terrible nightmares. And we actually saw that happen all the way back as far as Age of Ultron. Everybody experienced those nightmare dreams with the broken Iron Man mask and everybody having their nightmares. So I could possibly see Wanda actually being a mix between, well, her own character and actually incorporating Nightmare herself as herself. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I could see that happening too. We'll do just a little bit more speculation, but we'll start to wrap things up here. Austin, I know we talked about this. Jake and I talked about this recently as well, but Elizabeth Olsen said that, like you had mentioned, that there would be a cameo that would rival Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian. Do you think that Loki is on that same level?
Everyone loves Tom Hiddleston. He's so popular. He's a fan favorite. You mean, imagine seeing Pietro all of a sudden phase out and is Loki standing there. Like that would be way bigger than the Mark Hamill cameo, even to me. More exciting, at least, and shocking. Paul Bettany has already hinted at the twist and the payout at the end, like making sense. Like all of this behavior is so Loki. He's the trickster. He's snarky. His comments. It would fit very perfectly. I mean, I would be super happy if that was a twist at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it definitely working. I'm still really hoping for Magneto. I think we'd really like to see Fassbender come back. I think it'd be awesome. Jake, any more speculation, any more theories you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, about Pietro's character, it's like, I mean, there's so many things. I want to talk myself into him being the Pietro from X-Men, and then he's a staple of the MCU moving forward. That would be nice to me. It was interesting that he does have his super speed in this episode, so we didn't really get to see any of him.
Did you notice that his super speed was not like his super speed in X-Men? It was like this MCU version of Pietro's super speed.
Yeah, I could chalk that up to just being what setting they're in, where his powers look different because of the setting they are in, so it looks more old school, because I mean they're still in the early 2000s at this point. It's interesting. I mean, the stuff with him pulling pranks and everything like that with the shaving cream water balloons. We also have to remember that he is basically playing the character Francis from Malcolm in the Middle in this episode.
Yeah,
that's his name. I couldn't remember what the oldest brother's name was. Yeah.
So Billy is basically Malcolm, and Tommy was Reese, and then their uncle is now what would be their oldest brother, Francis. So he was definitely playing that role. And those are such good episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. So I'm kind of chalking it up to him playing a role at this point. But
I was just thinking the comment, your husband's dead comment. That's a very Loki comment.
that was a little much. I'll give you that one. I do have 2 quick questions.
Oh yeah, let's
for
go.
You guys. All right. One interesting part in their conversations when the kids were going trick-or-treating, Wanda asked Pietro if he remembers the guy with the skin, the kid with the skin in their orphanage. It almost sounds like she's tying in Xavier's Home for Gifted Youngsters, which is technically a school. It's not really an orphanage, but that we know that there are orphans living there. Obviously, a lot of them have weird skins, whether it be Nightcrawler, Mystique, whoever. So what was that about? That's got to mean something, right?
I thought about a mutant as well, Austin.
So the Brotherhood of Mutants, which it would have actually not the Skull for Gifted Children, seeing as she's Magneto's daughter. It would have fit Toad really nice, who's already been in the X-Men movies, dating back to the first X-Men, played by Ray Parks, which would be super awesome if he could come into the MCU in any form. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was just a funny reference to mutants. I'm not expecting to see much from it.
I still think it's possible. What if the cameo at the end is Deadpool? Dude with the skin? I mean, his skin's all jacked up. So what about that?
Oh, yeah.
It's possible.
The orphanage, she seemed like she was legitimately testing him about the orphanage, though. I think it's like a funny little Easter egg with the funny skin thing, but I think she was being legitimately trying to test if he's the real Pietro. Like, do you remember that kid that we grew up with?
It was so vague.
I don't really.
Yeah, that like even people who are looking for Easter eggs don't know what the heck she was really talking about, what person. So it was so vague. I feel like it might get brought up again.
Oh, something else really quick that we missed. And I didn't notice this the first time I saw it, but the flashback scene of when it's them, Wanda and Pietro trick-or-treating. Wanda is Mantis and Pietro is Fury, Nick Fury. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, I didn't notice that either. The first,
pretty awesome. Jake, did you already ask your last question?
Well, that was one of them, but yeah, the other one I'll be interested to see is who is Monica's guy that she's texting and that she was going to meet up with. So, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of a big thing. She's mentioned multiple times different friends she has and stuff like that. So I don't know if that person's actually going to be of any importance, but I guess we'll see next episode.
Did she say it was a guy?
Yeah, she says, I'm gonna
Well,
meet my guy over
My
here.
guy.
I'll text you the location. So
Interestingly, possible leak in the Spanish dub, they used the feminine actually instead. So that had people guessing maybe a female character, but could
I've
just
heard
be
Sherry.
wrong. That
I've heard it could
mistranslation.
be Sherry.
Astrophysicist is what she talked about her guy though.
Oh.
The most likely I've seen, my guess, if we're going to do a Fantastic, it would be Ben Grimm. Kind of a lesser, not as big as Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards or anything. The other fan theory that everybody really, really wants it to be is Dr. Doom, which I think is too big of a drop at this point. But I don't know. The astrophysicist could be Ben Grimm. I see that not being super unlikely.
I mean, it's got to be somebody smart enough who thinks that they can break in. I mean, not very many people you think would be able to get inside the hex.
Also, we have the witness, the under protective witness protection program, still floating around somewhere, another unknown person. So we might actually have like a few big cameos left between all of these slightly mentioned characters, if they ever end up showing up.
It's been awesome discussing this episode of WandaVision with you guys. And we want to thank our listeners, audio listeners, our viewers here on YouTube. Again, please leave us a like, comment, hit us with that sub. We're going to break down episode 7 next week, so stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for some more shows here on the Starfighter podcast. We're going to be introducing a new Star Wars series that we're going to be doing on here as well. A lot more fun stuff we've got coming your way. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and we're signing off.
All right, until next time.